Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karl Weaver. I work for Rivets Corp. I'm here at the Gurney's Marina here in Newport, fabulous Newport, Rhode Island. I'm here for a conference. It's a financial and cybersecurity conference. I gave a presentation today on blockchain and blockchain security. Welcome to Newport, Rhode Island, which is a fantastic place. Also, I'm a Salve Regina University alumni here, and I just spent an hour at the campus. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this upcoming video that I recorded. Thank you.
Account executive, so my job is to create relationships with our company and other.
Good morning, all the group here. Fantastic. It's so busy here. So my name is Karl Weaver. I'm very controversial, actually. I'm also a New Englander transplanted to Seattle, but I'm a Salve Regina College University graduate. Probably the only one here at this event. Anyway, I am a wireless market mobile device specialist. I'm a China, India, Asia global device specialist. I work for Gemalto, Trustonic, and most recently ARM. I joined Rivets about 5 months ago because they're doing something really cool. We're providing mobile device security based on the trusted execution environment. We're providing the developer tools that are needed for the trusted execution environment to protect blockchain transactions and activities. And in fact, there'll be a blockchain phone a year from now. Companies like HTC, Huawei, and Lenovo, and many other companies will be actually making a blockchain type phone. We just want to make sure that they're using the right kind of security to do that. Our developer tools and a combination of something called dual roots of trust from the TE as well as the USIM or the eSIM on a smartphone or mobile device. Thanks.
Great. And I'm William Stutzman. I work at Ventus. We do manage telecommunications and provide connectivity for multiple types of organizations, anywhere from mobile to Wi-Fi to cellular propositions, and also retail, restaurants, and finance area. So I want to thank you guys for all sticking out through Friday with us. So I broke it down into 3 general areas. We'll talk about sort of the physical devices first, and then sort of security that drives sort of that physical device, and then we'll kind of look at sort of the payment impact and how the different things can kind of work across that. So the first kind of question, a lot of the stuff that's happening in Uber, that's happening with payment, is mobile driven, and sort of what are the elements of the current devices that allow you to kind of drive that functionality? Is there something that's helping you get more biometric? Is it GPS for Uber? You know, sort of what's driving that difference that allows you to kind of get that mobile device up and running and keeps the sort of functionality of your business running? Is there somewhere you can explain that?
Well, I can do it from our standpoint. I mean, the technology itself, GPS is a big one because we can determine where transactions are being made. So for example, if somebody has a card and they are living in Rhode Island, but there's a lot of transactions going on that's not in Rhode Island, there's a lot of fraud controls around that. But there's also the ability to do tokenized transactions where, as opposed to putting a card in the mix, it's just a machine-to-machine communication that does the transaction, so that it takes out some of that liability in that as well. So wireless, from our perspective at least, is viable because it provides the consumer with what they need when they want it, but in a fairly secure manner.
And are you guys using any of the biometric pieces for that to identify folks?
We can. Yeah. It depends on what our customer base wants and how or to what level they want to provide that security, but we can definitely take any of those things into account, whether it's face recognition, biometrics, any of those can be a part of that overall program.
And Karl, with sort of the focus on the devices, you know, what do you see sort of changing in those devices to do this type of things you're talking about with securing them? You know, what's going to change within that device to drive that?
Well, right now, for example, the Apple iPhone uses biometric authentication, and biometric authentication is an algorithm. It's stored in the trusted execution environment. Right now, Apple has developed their own TE type solution. And on the Android smartphones, they're using the TE for biometric authentication. We see 2 or maybe multi-factor authentication being the future. Apple's solution is closed network. It's secure. The Android operating system, when you put it in the TE, it's also secure, but it's not always in the TE, and hence it really does need to be there. But people want a little bit more security because they say that your thumbprint can be reproduced and put stuck with a piece of tape. If anybody ever watched that movie, what's that movie? National.
Which one?
Mission Impossible.
Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh, the
National Treasure.
Yeah. So we think that a combination of either iris, heartbeat, DNA, thumb, any additional factor authentication just increases the security requirement. But even like Uber and Lyft, I use both. Those are apps in the open operating system of the device. It's good if they have some level of protection behind the trusted execution environment and ARM's trust zone, which is a firewall environment in every single mobile device.
You guys are more using that model versus the device itself. You guys are building your security into your app and utilizing the different types of functionality that are coming more through the adoption of the software model versus the actual physical models of phones.
Yeah, we're not into the business of actually devising these devices, but at the same time, we were a pretty big influencer. We used to actually be one of the biggest customers of telcos around the world because we used to give all our drivers phones. And actually my team was a profit center because we used to actually get charged, let's say $20 from AT&T and charge the drivers $25 for their plan. So there are 3 million drivers on Uber platform worldwide. But again, now it's all BYOD. But we used to heavily influence some of the directions from security, handset manufacturing and all of that at some point.
And it's all shifted now since it's BYOD. What we rely on is that the market develops, it'll change that and add to that and kind of grow through that. Within the physical devices, there are all these attributes now that are going to demand data. And so sort of what do you and I talked briefly yesterday, the amount of data that you guys are generating and things like that. And so the BYOD market where you're bringing your own device now, you're looking at a sort of the functionality. Are you limited in the scope of the type of functionality you're looking for from the phone because of the amount of data stream it might put on the customer, your employees or not the drivers restrictions, or how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, I mean, we really, Uber is a technology tool available for the drivers around the world, like Lyft. It's their technology platform, and we get a technology fee out of giving them that. So it's like using any software. So it's a tool at the end of the day. So they control everything that goes on in their device. But it changes slightly when you look at other items. For example, I'll give you an example where, so there's a division called, so until now Uber has been in the business of moving people from point A to point B. Now they figured out this network of 100 million riders and around 3 million drivers around the world. Just to put it in perspective, that 3 million, even though we're not an employer, we're only surpassed by Department of Defense in number of people employed. So that's around 3.2 million people. We actually surpass the People Liberation's Army and Walmart from a number of people on our platform. Now, so we figured out we can use this network to actually transport not just human beings, also things. So that comes with its own challenges. And wireless tech can be used to solve some of these problems. So one of the big financial issues we had was we have around 100,000 restaurants. So one of the things we can transport from A to B is food. So we get into food delivery business called Uber Eats. And Uber Eats is growing faster than Uber because food delivery is not regulated like taxi business in a lot of markets. And in a lot of countries, so there's these 100,000 restaurants that have these Uber Eats tablets. So we ship tablets when a restaurant onboards, because if you go to a restaurant kiosk, you see at least 5-6 tablets now. And the reason is you don't want to, no food delivery business want to compete with the real estate space on their desktop. So everyone gives their own tablets, so it's just easy to take orders. Now the problem is when we shipped these 100,000 tablets, most of them are Wi-Fi. So if the Wi-Fi is good, the business is running and it's totally dependent on Wi-Fi being there, right? Now, in US, it's ubiquitous. Wi-Fi it's fine, but in a lot of parts of the world, you can't rely on Wi-Fi.
Couldn't you add, this is a wireless panel, couldn't you add a dongle to add Wi-Fi in the car? There's lots of smart...
Just reading your mind.
Yeah, so I'll come to that. I'll come to that. We did an experiment on that. But so finishing this, the financial issue we're trying to solve is revenue generation. And we then put a LTE SIM into these tablets. So if the Wi-Fi goes down, the LTE wireless tech picks up, and it's a revenue continuation. So wireless actually solving a financial issue. And we did try the Wi-Fi dongle in the car. An average Uber ride is around 23 minutes. Nobody uses Wi-Fi in the car. So we tried that experiment.
I don't want to hear that.
So everyone, maybe it's the amount of time people are in rides, they just don't connect to Wi-Fi. So it's very low percentage adoption.
I have a 4G LTE enabled tablet right now, actually. Yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah,
so
I
much
think,
easier.
and additionally, most people when they're in the car have already used their phone, and the idea of logging onto another network while they're in there and other things that are going on and
But
Wi-Fi.
in developing markets, that is a potential. For example, there used to be a time in India where people used to call Uber and then switch off their data because data was expensive, and get to the point B and then switch on the data. But now, with the market changing, like there's a new player in India called Jio that has entirely changed the market in India. You can get an unlimited data connection with unlimited calling for less than $10 in India right now. So nobody needs any Wi-Fi. Everyone is on data.
On 4G LTE.
4G LTE.
Pretty cool. How about the Starbucks in India? Are they using Wi-Fi? I was in a Starbucks in India in 2016, and the Wi-Fi experience was not so great. So I guess that the 4G LTE is flawless. It's great wireless coverage. So that means that the 4G LTE might overtake the usage of using Wi-Fi in India. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Well, I think that overall, one of my next questions is talking about the future of technology from the handset perspective is the 5G coming. So 4G is ubiquitous now. The ability to switch back and forth between Wi-Fi and 4G is there, whether you're starting with Wi-Fi and going to LTE, or whether you're starting with LTE and going to Wi-Fi. The funny thing is that I used McDonald's Wi-Fi one day, and now every time I drive by the McDonald's, even if I don't stop, my phone switches over to the McDonald's Wi-Fi and asks me to verify that I'm having, even though I'm just driving by, but there's a red light in front of it. But that's how the systems work. So with you guys, will 5G make a big difference for you? And I think we talked about sort of with the self-driving cars as a piece of that business and where that'll head, and the amount of data you guys are using through that process.
Yeah, so we are heavily prepared for 5G, and if it promises what it's supposed to deliver, which is the 10 millisecond latency, it is a game changer, like how 3G to 4G was a game changer in terms of streaming and all the apps that came about. 5G is going to be a game changer, and the reason is, so we have a division which is more horizontal called Uber Autonomous Division. So this is the Uber self-driving car division. So the reason it came about is, so I'll give you an example of San Francisco. So from one end of San Francisco to the other end of San Francisco, on an Uber ride, Uber X, which is a flagship product comparable to taxis, around $9 to $10. Now, we introduced something called Uber Pool, which you can pool with other people, that brought down the cost to around $4.50. And now we have another product which is called Express Pool, which competes with the public transportation options, which basically you have to walk for 2 blocks, wait for some time. That still brought down the cost to around $3.25. Now, the Muni option in San Francisco, which is a public transportation option, is around $2.50, which is also heavily subsidized. So there is, from an economic standpoint, to compete, you have to have self-driving options to actually compete with the public transportation functions around the world. Now, we strongly feel that self-driving is the way to go about doing that. And each of these self-driving cars, so there are 300 of them in America right now doing a round of testing. after each drive, it emits around 2 terabytes of data. And just to put it in perspective, these 300 cars, you multiply 2 terabytes of data for a month. That's the amount of data the state of Hawaii consumes in a month for these 300 cars. Now, you can imagine if there are 3,000 or 300,000, 3 million cars in the road, it's a big data problem. So you've thought about big data, but this is enormous data problem.
And you're adding all the other vendors and all that.
And now the problem is, now I backhaul all this data into my data centers through, POP. So from the edge, it goes all the way back to the core. Now, with 5G, what it promises is, can I take back some of these processing back to the edge? Can I do edge computing, or at least fog computing, which is the concept where instead of hauling data back from the edge to the core, can I do it somewhere in between, which apparently they named it fog. Now the concept being, can I do, so if there are a fleet of, let's say, 15 cars in a vicinity, can I do V2X communication, vehicle-to-vehicle communications through 5G, and maybe only backhaul 40% of my data, do 60% of the data in that particular radius, using 5G with the speeds, and then backhaul the rest. So there are a lot of wireless tech that is going to solve business problems.
Going forward. And Kyle, you guys have a model using real-time data in 4G and 5G, but when you're looking at payments, you gave me some examples of how you're using real-time payments to make a decision for someone and whether they're able to kind of see what's going on with that device that they've passed.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we do is we allow, for example, one of our clients is Cabbage, where they do small business lending, where a merchant can actually go in, apply on their phone while they're standing in a store, get approved for it, and then through our system get a virtual card and make a purchase literally within about 3 to 4 minutes.
And it can be specific to the area and what they're using.
Sure, and so we talked earlier about some of the uses we use. It can be done based off of geographical location, GPS. It also can be done based off of what type of vendor they're at as well. I mean, I use the example all the time as one of our customers is DoorDash. And basically what happens is when that driver goes to pick up food, if they decide to stop along the way and maybe buy a beer or something, their card's not going to work because it won't allow it to go outside of their closed network.
Where they're supposed to be using
Exactly.
it. So they're able to securely give their employees cards and devices to make those payments, but instead of knowing, the old gas card where you could go to the gas station and just buy gas, you now can increase that
Sure.
functionality and either through geo-fencing or through GPS, specifically to target those.
Sure, and in addition to that, we can actually target and message them according to that. So if they are doing that, we can immediately send a message to their phone saying, what are you doing buying a beer? Move on.
Move that product. And Karl, will 5G play a big part of how you guys are going to be doing the sort of the biometric stuff within sort of making that, or making sure blockchain has that dual security element going with it? Is that latency going to help you guys, or is the current sort of speeds and technologies are working to be able to keep up with that?
We provide the developer tools, and it's not related to speed. It actually with 5G, as with 4G and narrowband IoT, they'll all use probably an embedded SIM, an eSIM into the cellular module. But the key point is, yes, we will be involved in that because it uses an eSIM, and we're providing a dual roots of trust solution in the TE as well as the eSIM. Absolutely. But I wanted to make one statement which is kind of interesting. Both 4G and 5G that have gone into the car go into the car and then provide the Wi-Fi. So you see, it's not Wi-Fi going into the car. It's a misnomer. Okay? It's 4G going into the car, and then 4G connects to an access point which gives the Wi-Fi in the car. Same thing with 5G. I think 5G will enable much more liquidity of telematics infotainment in the car. It'll just be so ubiquitous when it's in the car for 5G. So 5G is actually going in the car, and it will, of course, enable Wi-Fi in the car. But I think so many other cool things. So 5G is, the bandwidth is just unbelievable. But let's not go with the Gartner hype curve now. We're a few years away from actually seeing that in a car.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the 5G, and so we spend a lot of time sort of researching and looking at 5G, and most of the carriers that we work with, we even had one of the major carriers, the engineers that are working on the project was, at this point, he said, look, if you're relying on a year from now 5G for something, you might as well just run a hard wire to the building because they are about 600 or 900 feet point to point right now with 5G. But it just like blockchain or like any other new changing technology, AI, any of the big data stuff, this is going to change, and the bandwidth auctions that they're having, the different things that are going on will drive a lot of that.
America's also not, I just throw one other additional thing out there. It's very competitive. We're not in the lead with 5G, but we could be in the future. Actually, the Chinese are ahead of us. They're ahead of us. And that's why this is not a pitch, even though I live in Seattle, T-Mobile. I do think it's really important that T-Mobile merges with Sprint because to me, Sprint is like a horse that's run its last race. I don't want to be politically incorrect here, but I just have. So it's really critical that we lead in 5G. We have led as a country in 4G, without a doubt. Let's continue to do that. Let's let Sprint, T-Mobile be buddy-buddy, you know? Let's let that happen.
And you see this because you're worldwide, so you guys see all the different countries.
Yeah, we are definitely not in the lead in 5G. There are already cities live in 5G in Korea right now. Telecom leading the pack. I agree with the point made here. Telco is losing margins and losing proposition game at the end of the day. It's heavy infrastructure investments, and it takes multi-years to recoup those investments. So there's something called too much competition in telco too. If everyone is competing to the race to the bottom, it's good for consumers, your price goes down, but at the cost of what? Innovation. Would you rather have another multi-billion-dollar businesses coming out of 5G being deployed 2 years sooner than having that two years delay? And I think 3 is a sweet spot, 3 major carriers in US. A lot of other countries have come to this magic number 3 for competition. I think it'll create more investment dollars in the industry to propel 5G.
Not only that, it'll bring Seattle back as a major wireless area.
And I think overall, you'll see that a lot of the, not just on cellular, but when I look at the market, I see a lot of sort of merging between, as the cable providers become more of a broadband and not a content provider, you'll start to see that some of them want a national footprint and they'll want to be able to add some sort of cellular technology on top of what they're offering as sort of their fixed regionals that they have. And so I think that I was really surprised that Sprint didn't get bought by a cable company versus T-Mobile, but there's always time for T-Mobile to merge with Charter.
But it hasn't been done yet, you know?
So. We have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to kind of ask each of you, sort of, when you're looking at the real life examples of mobile payments, I think the one thing you and I talked about was that was different that you guys are trying is the Uber scooters. There's a process that's a completely mobile-driven product and sort of wouldn't even exist if it didn't have that sort of infrastructure.
Yeah, so it's for us, if you look at financial innovation, the key for us is driving revenues. That's the primary motive for any kind of financial innovation. So there are product lines that exclusively work only if the wireless tech is working. So even self-driving cars, for example, they will not start without a wireless connection. So you can probably be in some remote part of the country with no wireless connection. How the systems are designed is in such a way that the signaling, if it doesn't connect back to our fleet, the fleet management does not happen, the signaling does not happen, the car does not start. So at least if there is somebody who is a person in the car, you can call him up. If there's no coverage, you assume that he or she is going to drive that car back to the depot. But in a self-driving environment, there is no way you can get the car to start, right?
I wonder if you might think about this. With self-driving cars, there's nobody there. You can't talk to. This is just the car. I wonder if you might think about sort of like a multifunctional. It's like a multifunctional value-added transit card, but not for subway, for Uber, where each person who wants to engage in autonomous vehicles is given an NFC-enabled, of course, NFC-enabled card where the money is topped up at the at the end of the month. It could be a card, a plastic with a smart chip, or it actually could just be a mobile app. And you're enabling it with just your smartphone or a card where you're touching the car somehow, someplace there's a reader, and it's going to automatically know who you are. It's going to automatically understand the destination you're going to. I'm just thinking that even though there's nobody at the autonomous vehicle, there must be a way that you can pre-program so that you can avoid any of the hiccups, because you're busy. And executives are busy. They get in these autonomous vehicles. They don't want any hiccups.
Yeah, I mean, you should join the Uber product team. But having said that, I think these are our challenge mainly is to make the autonomy work. That's the main goal. But coming back to this point about wireless enabling, so there's a line of business we just bought called Jump Bikes. These are, if you're in San Francisco or some pilot market, you should definitely try these bikes. These are like red colored electric bikes. They're amazing. From downtown to the train station on an Uber takes you 15 minutes with traffic, but these bikes probably take you 8 minutes to get there. So these are game changers.
It's the last mile.
It's the last mile. And these won't start without a wireless connection, because and there's also scooters in these cities. But these scooters won't start without a wireless connection. So technically, if you go outside a coverage area, you lose the scooter. You lose the $500 you spent for the scooter. But it's okay to lose that money because of the low price point of that scooter. So wireless needs to be ubiquitous. You need redundant connectivity. You need predictable connectivity. Also, different modalities like satellite, LTE, and 5G, and different spectrums also involved in these things.
And Kyle, with you guys, the sort of the game changer that you have is sort of the ability to create a virtual credit card. And so
Sure.
the way that the networks has sort of shifted your business, it allows you to make that on-the-fly card and allows you to process that.
Yeah, and we can do it in seconds. I mean, literally when somebody's going into a transaction, depending on what type of transaction, we can make hundreds of decisions literally within 6 seconds of that.
And you've used that, your platform you guys created, it sort of allows folks to kind of customize that process.
It does, and we're one of the first, if not only the first, that allows you to do that at a very granular level. I mean, you can go down to, there are hundreds of different points, opportunities to do that. You can do it yourself, where we actually insert you into the transaction, or we can manage it for you. It just depends on how granular you want to go.
Excellent. So I'll finish up with sort of what are the types of, in 5 years from now, where do you guys think the area, and I'm going to give you 4 areas, is it transportation, is it shopping, is it the home, or is it education? Where do you think that wireless technology will have the greatest impact over the 5 years? So sort of transportation, shipping, education, or the home. I don't know if you guys saw the TD. The reason I included home is if you saw the TD Bank gentleman's presentation with the voice and the digital assistants and things like that and all those things. So I think technology, while we've talked a lot about sort of being mobile, you're now mobile in your house. And so do you guys have any thoughts on where you think we'll be 5 years from now for that? Go ahead.
I think it will be with the advancement of the embedded SIM into all IoT and all consumer electronic devices, because we only see one smartphone in the world today. It's called Google Pixel 2 phone, technically made by HTC. We only see one smartphone in the world today with an embedded SIM, and I don't want to be politically incorrect, but what the hell, why not? We see operators in the United States slowing the development of the eSIM technology, and it's not right, it's not good. Everything will be 5G, will be embedded SIM enabled, and that includes 4G, narrowband IoT, and 5G.
Is that to require the tracking so you know what that device, so it identifies that product so it doesn't go off?
Absolutely, so I see the future. Wi-Fi is important, but the future is the embedded SIM, which gives you the 5G connectivity in all of the devices that you want to use. That's what I see, 5G, embedded SIM in 5G especially, but embedded SIM in everything, including that thing over there.
Digital player. Kyle, how do you think it'll impact sort of you, from a payment perspective, Do you think the impact will be more in shopping, more in transportation?
Well, I think personally it'll be in shopping. It'll be in the relationship that the consumer has with the merchant itself. I think that there are a lot of decisions that are being made right now that can be made quicker, more efficient, more effective, which increases or improves the experience, which makes things, I don't want to use the term easier, but more efficient is probably the best way of saying it. By creating those efficiencies, I think that's going to drive the innovation.
And I can give you an example. I just bought a bunch of the Amazon Dash buttons during the Amazon Prime special.
Yeah.
It just is, it's interesting to me that they've narrowed it down to this one Wi-Fi device that you can kind of put in your area, your house, and say like, oh, I need more Downy, send me more Downy for the laundry room, and they've gotten to that level of them. They have hundreds of them. It's fascinating to see that number of shopping. Raul?
Yeah, I would say 2 areas. So if you think about where we spend most of our times, it's our home, and you getting from home to work and at work. So I would say home automation and things connected in your home from a wireless perspective, any kind of radio technology, whether it's near field, near medium, long range, medium range, or short range cellular technologies, is going to proliferate to an extent that your average connected, you probably will reach a point where you at least have minimum of 20, 25 connections at home. From fridge to shoes to whatnot. That's number one. And number two, your commute, your car. It is the biggest pain point for a lot of people in average commute of 30 to 45 minutes. If there are ways to better it, and whether it's autonomy, whether it's bringing infotainment to these cars, whether it's somebody else's car, the connection to the place that we travel from one point to the other is also going to proliferate. So those 2 areas are going to be heavily impacted by wireless tech in my opinion.
Great, thanks you guys. Any questions from the audience? Anyone? Excellent. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate everyone attending.